Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be looking at what you all thought about Captain America Brave New World and see if I disagree or agree with you. So, let's hear what crazy stuff you had to say. I'm a Marvel fan. This movie was amazing. Can't wait to see the next installment of Captain America. Great casting, storyline was perfect. Well, the first thing I can agree with you on is I thought the casting was good. I know that Anthony Mackie is getting a lot of hate online about his job as Captain America. I thought he did a really good job as Captain America. He's not Steve Rogers. We know that. It's a different version of Captain America, and I thought he did a good job. Harrison Ford was fantastic. He is him, one of the greatest actors of all time. And Giancarlo Esposito, he is brilliant. What an awesome actor. Fantastic in this movie. I wish we could have seen more of him. Now, as for the storyline, this storyline was far from perfect. It was mid at the absolute best. I don't know what kind of movie you saw, but I did not see the same movie that you did, because this storyline was just, it left me wishing that this could have done so much more, and it could have, and I just don't like it. A right down the middle Marvel movie. Entertaining enough to turn your brain off for 2 hours, but not enough to stand out among the ever-growing superhero library. It's not an offensive entry like some suggest. The action is fine, but the CGI is surprisingly poor. I appreciate that they address some unresolved story threads, but I still left unfulfilled. I expect excellence from Marvel Studios. This one was as average as it gets. I completely agree with this. This movie could have been so much more and left me wanting more. It was about as mid as a movie could possibly get, especially from Marvel Studios. It was mid or even below par for that matter. There were some things that were decent, but a lot of that wasn't decent. So it was just, could have been so much more, and I wish it would have been so much more. This movie was absolutely amazing. Best thing to come out of the MCU in a very, very long time. Dude, I don't know what you're smoking, but it's got to be something good, because this movie was not good. It was not the best to come out of Marvel in a very long time. There was so much better. It definitely wasn't the worst thing to come out of Marvel, but it's definitely not the best. This movie was, like I said, mid at best. You need to, if you liked it, great, good for you, but I don't know about that. Horrible script, uninspiring characters, and poor acting. At least the cherry blossoms were colorful. Well, I do agree with some of this. The script was absolutely terrible. This movie could have been so much more, but it was such a basic and slow plotting script with a terrible villain. It was just awful. And man, the acting though, I think was much better than you thought. Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. He's also taking over a character that was already previously established by another actor. And I think Anthony Mackie did a much better job than people give him credit for. The cherry blossoms, though, were great. It was okay. Maybe better than I thought. Marvel seems a bit lost since Avengers Endgame. I completely agree with you there. I think Marvel's had a few good entries since Avengers Endgame, but most of the movies that have come out since then have been pretty poor and pretty bad. I do think that they were trying to push out as much content as possible, but I think they have some new mandates coming out to have less movies and less shows and more quality, more better stories, that type of stuff. So I think moving forward with the Thunderbolts and especially the Fantastic Four, we're going to be getting higher, much better quality movies in the future, because I think Marvel has realized their error and is going to correct from that and make better entries moving forward. Gotta be the worst Marvel movie ever. Well, I can't go that far. I thought there were plenty of movies that were way worse than this. Thor Love and Thunder was, in my opinion, the absolute worst Marvel movie of all time. I do say this is probably somewhere right near the bottom third to middle third, in that range. It wasn't very good, but it wasn't terrible. It was at least somewhat entertaining. It's something that I would probably watch if it came on TV again. But there are other movies in Marvel that I'll never watch again because they were just that bad. Wasn't a bad movie, a little drawn out. I don't know if I'd say it's a little drawn out. The movie was barely over 2 hours, I think, maybe 2 hours and 10 minutes. So it wasn't super long, but I think they could have done so much more with the script. And I think that's why it felt a little drawn out, because we just didn't get much information in this movie. I think if they flushed out some of these plot points a little bit more and used their time wisely in fleshing those out, that this movie would have felt a lot better. But it could have been better. The movie wasn't that good, but the real issue is it didn't feel like a Marvel caliber movie for the theaters. If this was on Disney streaming or something like that, it would be okay, and I'd give it 3 stars. I'd probably agree with you with that. If this was just a streaming movie, it probably would have been better. But for a big budget theater experience, it just didn't live up to what it could have been. Hopefully, this is the last Captain America film. It wasn't very good and didn't really make sense. I agree with you that this movie didn't really make sense, and I think that's just because of poor writing and a poor villain, too. If the villain was better, this movie could have been a lot better. But a poor villain, poor script definitely hurt this movie. But I don't think that this should be the last Captain America movie. I really think that they should have another one because I really enjoy the character. I even enjoy Sam Wilson as the character. I think Anthony Mackie did a good job with him. It is a new version of Captain America. It's not the same Captain America that we've always known and we've always loved. It's a different version of him, and we need to accept that as a new Captain America, a different Captain America, not expecting it to be the same one. And I think people do that. They'll understand that Sam did a pretty good job, and it'd be exciting to see him in another movie that has actually a good plot to it. I think he could do a really good job. The powers of Captain America were too great. He was stronger than the original Captain America and was too unbelievable. The agents looked foolish with their guns standing there shooting at the Hulk. Also, the lead agent was so tiny beating up all those soldiers. Okay, this is something that I said and I didn't really flush out in my review, but Captain America in this movie was super OP. Like, there's no way he would be this overpowered. Like, Steve Rogers took a beating, but in this movie, you don't really see Anthony Mackie taking a beating. And he has no superpowers whatsoever. Like, it just didn't make any sense. The Hulk would have absolutely smashed this version of Captain America. A non-superpowered Captain America, Hulk would just flick him with his finger and just send him flying away. It made no sense. It was terrible, and I'm glad you pointed it out. Very disappointing movie. Directing and editing sucked. Story was already played out in Green Lantern, and we all know how well that movie did. I agree. The directing, the editing, it was all terrible. The story was terrible, and this movie was just as good probably as Green Lantern. Maybe slightly better, but not much better. This Captain America was great. Well, I agree to disagree. This Captain America was not great. It was mid at best, just like I've said. Could have been so much better, could have been great, but it wasn't because they just didn't want to spend the time writing a good story. It wasn't as bad as the Marvels. The movie didn't flow very well. Seems like the series of action scenes they filmed first, then decided to write some sort of plot around them, then throw in a couple of cameos to link back to previous movies and shows, wasted another good villain from the comics in a mediocre movie, D+ or C-. I completely agree with you on that. And the thing is, they did shoot this movie, and then they went through extensive rewrites. And I think it showed in this movie. Like you said, I think this fight scenes were probably from the original script. And then when they did the rewrites, they had to piece something together to make it a somewhat coherent movie, because the original script was even worse than this, which is hard to believe because this script was terrible. This villain was terrible. So I couldn't imagine what we would have gotten if we would have gotten the original script. It's unimaginable how bad it could have been. And this is a salvaged version, which is hard to think of with it being this bad. So yeah, it makes sense what you said, looking like it's pieced together, because I believe that's exactly how this movie was made, just pieced together. People are being way too harsh on this movie. It's definitely not any worse than Thor 2, Eternals, or The Marvels. February was not the right month for this to come out in. This is a 4th of July weekend movie through and through. Imagine Independence Day meets Air Force One, but minus the aliens and be more comic booky. This isn't a perfect movie, however, as it's not as dark and serious as it should be, and the actors aside from Harrison Ford are very television. But come July, when there's nothing left to watch, go to the park for the afternoon, have a cookout with some bomb pops, then come home, pop some popcorn, then put this movie on. I think you will find yourself enjoying it. It's very 90s summer blockbuster. Brave New World is very much in line with the Venom movies. Okay, I got a lot to say about this one here. First off, this movie should never come out in the middle of summer when all the big blockbusters come out. This movie was not a big blockbuster, super huge movie. It never should come out then. I understand your thinking with it being Captain America and 4th of July, but this movie should absolutely never come out in the middle of summer with all the big blockbusters. February was a perfect time for this movie. Now, if they would have done it better and it could have been a better movie, maybe. Or maybe the next one, if they learn from their mistakes and make it a bigger and better movie, then maybe I could see that happening. But for the movie that we got, February was the perfect month. You could have put it, whatever the deadest month was, that's the month this movie should have come out in because it didn't warrant anything else besides that. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. You guys had some very interesting takes about Captain America Brave New World. And make sure you go like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. And while you're here, why don't you check out this video right here. Until next time, everyone, enjoy the movies and I'll see you.